I've got to be honest, when I'm hunting for a graphics card, I've learned the hard way that the cheapest, good enough option often ends up being a regret. I've spent a few weeks scrolling through forums, watching a dozen unboxing videos, and even reading a handful of build logs where people talked about their cards overheating after just a short burst of rendering. Those stories always make me pause before I click Add to Cart. That's why I'm taking a closer look at the ASUS Turbo AMD Radeon AI Pro R9700 today. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of workload that pushes a GPU to its limits. I work with a mix of AI-driven image generation, 3D model training, and a bit of high-resolution video editing. Those tasks are notoriously hungry for VRAM, and for consistent thermal performance, any dip in temperature can force a slowdown that stretches a 2-hour render into something that feels like a marathon. The ASUS Turbo packs 32GB of GDDR6 on a 256-bit bus, which puts it squarely in the league of the heavy-duty cards you'd normally see in a workstation. What that means in plain English is you can keep a large model loaded in memory without the card constantly swapping data back to your system RAM, and you won't see those dreaded out-of-memory crashes that can sabotage a long-running training job. But raw numbers don't tell the whole story. The real differentiator for me is how ASUS has handled heat. They've wrapped the GPU in a die-cast shroud and a solid backplate, turning the whole board into something you could almost call a mini chassis. The heat pipe layout is paired with a phase-change thermal pad, which basically means the pad becomes more conductive as it heats up, smoothing out temperature spikes that would otherwise force the fan to spin up aggressively. In my testing, a series of back-to-back 30-minute AI inference runs, the card stayed under 75 C, and the fans never hit that high-pitch whine you hear on many other cards. That kind of quiet operation is a big win if you're sharing a workspace, or just don't want a constant hum in the background. Now, onto the dual-ball fan bearings. Most consumer cards use sleeve bearings that can start to make noise after a few hundred hours of operation. The dual-ball design here is rated to last roughly twice as long. In practical terms, that translates to less maintenance and a lower chance of a fan failure mid-render. I ran the card through a stress test that kept it at full load for 10 hours straight. The fans maintained a steady RPM with no wobble, and when I checked the bearings afterward, they felt as solid as when I first installed them. All that said, the Turbo isn't a magic bullet for everyone. If you're a casual gamer who mainly plays at 1080p and tweaks a few shaders, you'll probably never tap into the 32GB of VRAM or need the heavy thermal headroom. In those cases, a more modest card, say a mid-range Radeon or NVIDIA offering, will give you comparable frame rates for a fraction of the price. The ASUS Turbo's strength lies in consistency under sustained load, not in delivering that single-frame boost that matters most to hyped gamers. One practical trade-off I observed is the size. The die-cast shroud and the triple fan assembly push the card's dimensions well beyond the average single-slot design. My test bench was a full tower case, and the card took up almost the entire length of the chassis. If you're building a compact PC or a workstation with limited clearance, you'll need to double-check your case dimensions before you order. The extra length isn't a problem for a spacious build, but it can become an inconvenience if you're trying to fit it into a smaller form factor. Another nuance is the power requirement. The R9700 draws a peak of around 350 watts, meaning you'll need a robust power supply, at least 750 W, with an 80+ gold rating to keep everything stable. I saw a few DIY videos where people tried to power the card with a marginal PSU, and the system would either throttle or shut down during intense AI training sessions. So, if you're on a tight budget and already have a 600W unit, you might have to upgrade the power supply just to accommodate this card, which adds to the overall spend. Who should buy this model? If you're a professional or a serious hobbyist who does daily AI inference, large-scale 3D rendering, or high-resolution video work, the ASUS Turbo AMD Radeon AI Pro R9700 feels like a purposeful investment. The large VRAM pool, the stable thermal design, and the long-lasting fans align with the demands of those workloads. The 3-year warranty also adds peace of mind, which is valuable when you're spending upwards of $1,000 on a single component. Who should skip it? Anyone whose primary use case is gaming at 1080p or 1440p, or who only occasionally dabbles in GPU-accelerated tasks, will likely find the price a stretch. The same workload could be handled by a card that's half the cost and fits